Hi, this is Mackenzie with Terrapin Creek Designs. If you clicked on this video, I can only assume that you've purchased one of our take and make kits from a craft show, Etsy, or Facebook, or wherever else you can find us online. And this is the tutorial on how to paint this ornament. This is my third video of the night, so if I'm kind of out of breath, it's been a little hectic. But this is the tutorial on this ornament. This is the Snowman Santa tracker. With each kit, you'll get a list of what is included in your kit, which will also have a QR code. Our QR code is a link to our link tree that sends you to our Facebook, our Etsy, our Instagram, our Venmo, and a link to all of these videos. Well, this is what we're painting. This is what your finished product will look like. He's so cute. This QR code actually does track Santa also, so that'll be fun, interactive for your kids during Christmas. Let's get into it. So each kit will come with a paintbrush, will come with glue, your ornament, your bow, your twine, and your bead, a sponge, and all of the paint needed for this ornament. If you happen to have any painter's tape accessible to you, I will say it is super useful for projects like this. I will show you why. I will use this. Anything else that is not included in the kit, I will not use. I will show you things that help me with the project, but I won't use them because they're not included. However, painter's tape I have to use. I'm a lefty, so when I paint, normally when I'm not videoing myself, I paint like, you'll see what I mean in a second, but my tape is this way so that I can paint comfortably. But for the sake of the video and the end product, I'm going to have to tape them down because I'm going to be at an awkward angle. So if you have painter's tape, I use thick and thin, and I'll take my thick first. You don't have to use painter's tape. You can use Scotch tape or boxing tape or whatever kind of tape you want. I wouldn't suggest glue, but tape will work just fine. And then I take my thin tape and I tape my tape to the table, and the thick piece is sticky side up. And what that does is it helps hold your ornament pieces in place when you paint them. You're not chasing them all over the table because some of these pieces in this ornament are super, super tiny. So holding on to this and trying to paint it would just be a pain, and I don't want to do that. So I tape them down. Anything else that I show you that I use, you do not have to use. But this is it's almost like a little non-negotiable for me because I have to have it. So first, we're going to start with our outside ring. And here is our picture that we're going to go off of. The only thing that's going to be different from the photo from our end product is the color of the snowman's scarf, mainly because I thought this was a lot of red, so we changed it to blue. But you can make it red, you can make it any of these colors, you can make his scarf. I just chose the blue. So we're going to start with this outside ring, and it is red. Before I do that, actually, your sponge. You'll find that I don't use a paintbrush for a whole lot. If you watch a lot of these videos, rarely do I use the paintbrush. I will try to use it on something in this kit though, just to show you that you can use them. I just prefer the sponge. That's what I'm used to using, so that's what I use. And I have scissors accessible to me. Maybe you have scissors accessible to you and you can do this also, but I like to cut my sponges up so that I can use them more than once. If you do not have scissors, you can always use like the fat side and then the skinny side. You can manipulate it. You can bend it. If you don't have them and use, like if you've already used the tip, you can just bend your sponge and use it in a different color on this side, and then you can use the bottom. Many ways you can use this if you don't have scissors, but I am going to cut mine into pieces. And we have how many colors? 5 colors? 6 colors. 5 colors. So I'm going to make sure I have, I'm going to leave that one 5. If you're doing this with me on this particular ornament and you want to use the sponge method, I did leave the fat end of the sponge, the big piece, because we're painting this snowman white, and this is more surface area for the snowman. That's why I left the bottom, the fatter part of the sponge whole, and then cut up the littler pieces because they're littler pieces that we have to paint. So we're going to start with the red. If you have a paper plate accessible to you, it does make it easier when you're using the sponge method to dump this paint out on the paper plate. If you don't and you have tape, dump it out on tape, a napkin, a pizza box lid. You can literally use anything at all to dump this out on. I've used tissue paper before. I've used wrapping paper before. Anything just to keep it off of your table if you're painting on like a nice surface and you don't want to get paint on it. This obviously is not a nice surface, but if you are, I would use something different. We're going to get our red and we're just going to pounce it along the ornament. If you're using the sponge, I would not suggest dragging it. I would always suggest pouncing it no matter what you're painting to avoid like streak marks. But also if you're going over words that have been scored or images, etching, anything like that, if you're pouncing, you're less likely to get pooling in those crevices where your letters are. If you're dragging it, you're more likely to see that pooling. So make sure all of this is covered, and then we're going to set it aside. We're going to get out our little pieces and never tell. Little guys. Let's see. Okay, so we got our snowman, we got our scarf, and our little nose, and the back. This is so little. See how that is kind of scorched compared to that side? That is how you will know the back of the nose from the front of the nose. The less the less scorched side obviously is going to be the right side, the paintable side. Same thing with the heart. That is super scorched. That side is not. This is your top. The snowman. He already looks painted, but he's not. Okay, and then your buttons. And I like to keep my light colors together so that I only really have to use the red once, the orange once, the white once. They all kind of are fluent. They go together. As I said that, my whites were not together. Since I already have my red out, I'm going to go ahead and do the heart. Right. And then his nose is orange, so I'm going to get my orange. And I'll do the paintbrush for this little orange. I will also say anything that has score marks, etch marks, like the scarf, pretty much every other piece besides the heart and the nose, I will always prefer a sponge. I may have already said this, I don't remember. I will always prefer a sponge rather than dragging the paint, because with the sponge you pounce, like I said before. With the paintbrush you have to drag, and I'd just rather not drag over those lines, especially his smile, where like nothing goes over his smile. That's just my preference. You may do whatever you wish. Close my... Okay, we'll do the blue scarf. If you do happen to get paint in a crevice and it looks pulled, you can use a toothpick, a bobby pin, the back of an earring, anything with a sharp point that you can drag in this crevice. I use this little thing I got from Dollar Tree. It's just got a really fine point at the end, and you can just drag it in that in the score mark, and it'll drag all that paint out with you. Super simple. Then we've got our black. And these little pots look super tiny. They are super tiny. I mean, look at the palm of my hand. But it is plenty of enough paint for whatever ornament you're going to do. You'll have plenty of paint. And in the event that it's a bigger ornament and takes a whole lot of one color, we'll give you 2 pots of the same color, what have you. You don't have to worry about not having enough paint. We will always, always, always give you enough paint. And of course, bigger projects will come with more sponges and what have you. It'll always be your kit will include everything that you will need to make the ornament. No extras are necessary. Let's see, I have paint all over my hands. Okay, so now we're going to move to our white. This is why I left my big piece. And pretty much everything on this, the bottom half of the snowman, all of these are getting covered up. So it doesn't matter if you get pooling in these, because you're going to put the heart over the heart and the buttons over the buttons, the nose over the nose. However, his mouth, his eyes, his eyebrows, and his little snowflake right there do not get covered with anything. So if you see pooling in those crevices, I do suggest you get one of those things I was telling you about to drag along the image, because if you lose his smile or if you lose an eyebrow, it could take away his happy expression. Okay, so we are going to wait for them to dry a little bit, because then I'm going to take the paintbrush and I'm only going to get the smallest bit of this corner, this little edge in the black, and we are going to use it to barely dot his eyes. But I am going to show you that it is possible to do it with this paintbrush. It just takes precision. So we're barely going to put it in the black. Okay, and we're just going to barely dab it. I gotta stop talking so I'll stop shaking. Barely dab it on his eyes. Perfect. Okay, and then for the sake of time, I am going to hit all of this with a hairdryer. You don't have to have a hairdryer. I'm sure you're not as time crunched as I am, so you do not have to use one. I'm gonna. So I'll be right back. Okay, so now we are going to work on assembling our ornament. So I'm going to move this tape up. You can see what I'm doing. Put him at the very top here. And this part, I think I already said that, but don't paint this white part. All this stuff, leave it white so it doesn't mess up your QR code. Your kit will come with glue. Open your glue and put it on the back here. And then I will always use my finger. If I think there's going to be like it's seeping out the edges, I'll always use my finger to kind of mash it down. So maybe it'll lessen the effect of the seep. I'll put that right on top. Your glue gives you about 45 seconds before it's firm. So if you put it a little lopsided, you have time to scoot it back into the place before it's stuck for good. It's very workable. And for those of you who don't like to get things on your fingers, okay, I ran out of storage, so I'm hoping this is where I was when I left off. I'm not really sure, but I stuck my snowman on. So now we are going to do his little heart. If you happen to have tweezers accessible to you, it makes them super simple to place your little tiny pieces on. I won't be using them because they're not included in the kit, but if you have them, it makes this process a lot smoother. So we're going to dab it on the back. It also works if you put a dab of glue on your tape or whatever you have your paint on, and then you can just put your little piece in your pool of glue. Okay. And this glue just rolls off your fingers. It's like Elmer's glue. It's not Elmer's glue, it's art glue, but it just rolls off your fingers like Elmer's glue does, and you can just pick it off. Super easy to clean up off your skin. Not so much on your clothes or your project. If you get it on something you don't want it on and it dries, you may have to like sand it off or scrape it off or something. But on your skin, super simple. Okay, we got his buttons on. Now we're going to do his little nose. This would be prime example for your tweezers. This little tiny nose. Perfect. And then your his scarf. He would have been cold without his scarf. And your snowflakes. And snowflakes, I like to put like a big dot in the center, and then I'll take it out to all the little legs. And you can drop it on and move it to where you need it. You do have time to play with your piece before it is glued down forever. Perfect. Okay, I'm just rolling the glue off my fingers now. I've got it assembled. Now we're going to remove our tape. We're going to get our twine, our bow, and our bead. And if you happen to have a paper clip next to you, accessible to you, you can cut it in half, bend it back and forth until it snaps in half, and then you can use it to thread your twine onto your bead like so. One is not included in the kit, therefore I am not going to use it, but it does make it simple, especially if you're doing several of these or if you're doing them for children. It makes it a lot easier for them as well. But you're going to match up your ends because we're going to want to find the center of our twine. You're going to pinch it and just twist it. And then you're going to just thread it through. Very easy. You're going to pinch and twist again and feed it through the front of your ornament so that your loop is on the back. And then you're going to pull your bead closer to the tip, but not all the way to the tip. And you're going to feed your bead through that back loop so that your bead is on the outside of this loop. Okay? Then you're going to take your bow and you're going to feed one leg in one loop through this like hole that we've created. All right, it sits right on top, and then you're going to grab the top where your bead is, and you're just going to pull it down, and it's going to cinch down. Now you are working with twine, so it's going to want to kind of grab on itself and twist your bow, but you can finagle it back into place like that, and then pull your bead down, and that will secure your bow in place. And now we're going to put a knot right at the top of our bead. And how I keep it at the bead is I keep my fingers on the knot as I'm pulling it, so it forces that knot down on top of your bead. But your bead doesn't move, your bow doesn't move. Okay, and then we're going to put another knot at the top of our twine, like that. And that is your finished product. This was our beginning product. Pretty perfect. Hope you guys enjoyed. God bless.